Welcome, everyone, to Move Crush Count. I'm your host, Scott Joseph. Today's episode is brought to you by J&L Marketing, a digital and direct marketing agency that helps you outsmart the competition so you don't have to outspend them. Do me a favor. After today's episode, visit jnlmarketing.com today so you can discover how they'll help you move the crowd, crush the competition, and count the money. I'm excited. I've got a guest that all the rage is just Chat GPT, and it's not limited to that. It's all about AI. And I had the privilege and pleasure of meeting Larry Roberts out in Podfest down in Orlando this past January. He was doing a session specifically on Chat GPT, and at least I was smart enough at the time, Larry, to know, I knew what I didn't know. Which there's a lot I don't know that I don't know, but this one I knew that I didn't know and I needed to. And so I attended that session. It was actually the very first session. And I would argue it was the best session I attended the entire 3 days while I was there. So immediately we started talking. He had the privilege of bringing him out to Business Bourbon and Cigars this past March in San Antonio. That was a session that could have went on for an hour, and we could have kept going. We had to cut it at one point to stay on the agenda, but obviously it was a discussion everybody was interested in. Larry, he's the founder of Red Hat Media, a thought leader when it comes to the AI space. He hosts workshops. He has speaking engagements, and it's all about helping creators utilize new technology, push their boundaries, push the owners out of their comfort zones, and enter into this new chapter of innovation and growth. So I'm excited. I want the MCC Nation to welcome Larry Roberts to the stage. Welcome, Larry.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it, man. It was great meeting you back in Orlando. I think it was January when that was. After that session, we just kind of continued the conversation, and now we've gotten to be pretty good friends, and we're talking quite a bit these days. So this is awesome. Happy to be here.
Thank you. I never wear a hat on this show, but since this is your trademark, and I wanted to honor you, and it gave me a chance to, promote the Derby here coming up here in a couple of weeks. But in reality, I'm not honoring you at all. I have a tea time after this episode, so it worked out perfect.
Dude, I love it because with you, I've learned, and especially after going to Business Bourbon and Cigars, that there's usually a counterpoint to the compliment. And there's usually some sort of stab that's coming that follows the compliment. So, no, I'm right there. I appreciate that.
If you can't have fun, I got to get used to this hat. I keep bumping into my mic with it. I need one of those mics that comes from the ground instead of from the hanging over me here. All right, let me ask you. Let's dive right into this stuff.
Yeah, man.
What inspired you? What got you into the AI space?
Man, my background was IT, even back when I was still in the corporate space. So when I left corporate back in 2021, I was a business intelligence analyst. So it's a real fancy term to say that I looked at data all the time and normalized data and took data from different data sources and made it all look similar so that we could query from it and build various analysis charts, reports, that sort of thing. So IT has always been kind of where I'm at. And then also from the creative side of things, always been real creative. So when I saw this Chat GPT thing come, I knew about AI. I've been in the podcast space since 2014, and there's a ton of tools out there that were AI based that many creators were already using. So when we had access to this Chat GPT thing that dropped back in November, and we had direct access to it where we had the freedom to ask it questions and work with it in a variety of different ways, I was like, man, I got to check this out. So as soon as I did, I was blown away. I was blown away at how easy it is to create in the tool, how versatile the tool is. And especially because, again, going back to my corporate days, in the BI space, you got to write some code. You probably need to know how to write a little C#. And I don't want to get all nerdy here, but you probably got to you definitely have to write SQL. And the coding aspects of ChatGPT, where it could actually go in and write functional code and debug code that already exists. I was like, oh my God, if this was available to me, 3 years ago, maybe I wouldn't have had to leave corporate America. Maybe I would have finally got a raise after 10 years in the BI. No, I'm just kidding. But it would have been extremely beneficial, a tool even back then. So I was just blown away at it and became obsessed. and it would
Our,
do
I know,
everything that I do in the creative space.
yeah, I know our coders and our IT team, they use it quite a bit to do exactly what you just said. So,
Yeah,
I love to see that, and I love to see. I, to me, I think there's a there's a concern out there that, oh wow, will this replace jobs? I think it only replaces the job or the person that doesn't utilize it.
100%. It's funny that we're even kind of going on this path because I reached out to the vice president of the company that I used to work for, the IT vice president, who's still a good personal friend of mine. And I said, so, what are you guys doing back in the shop with ChatGPT? And he goes, well, I asked the programmers and they said that the code that it writes, it's dirty and they'd rather write their own code than have to go clean up somebody else's code or something else's code. And I said, that kind of sounds like self-preservation to me. It sounds
Yeah.
to me like they're trying to make sure you don't get too convinced that ChatGPT can do what it can do.
Yeah, I always first off, if I get 10 coders in a room, it's like if we have coders or attorneys watching or listening, I apologize in advance. But if I get 10 of either one of those two segments in a room and I ask them a question, I always get 10 different answers. So I've never met a coder that didn't like the previous guy's code.
No, 100%. No idea what he was doing. This is just, nonsense. I'll rewrite this every time.
So listen, AI today, how we know it, I think that even the general population is starting to get a pretty good idea of like, oh, wow. So this is what everyone's been talking about for the last 5, 7, 8 years. But I go back 5 years and what I understood, saw about AI is night and day. So how has that evolved over the last few years?
I think that the evolution really goes from the generative aspect of it. If you look at companies like Uber and some of the other larger companies, I mean, even dating apps, et cetera, have been using AI for their platforms. And we just didn't necessarily even really understand what that meant. But now that we have access to have real life, natural language conversations with these chatbots, essentially, and we see the power that's there. I think that's the difference. It allows us to take control of that AI and leverage it for our own creative space.
What are some of the benefits do you think of leveraging AI? So if I'm a let's take business owner, right?
Sure.
And or employee even.
Well, employee, it can save your backside because, I know
Yeah.
there were many days when I sat there at my desk trying to come up with a solution and trying to maybe figure out how to write the proper SQL statement or write the right C sharp. And if I had an opportunity to go in here and ask a AI chatbot for a solution and it gave me a solution or it debugged existing code, my efficiency level would have gone through the roof, and I'm not kidding there. That would have been a tremendous asset. And as a coder, if you were to take advantage of that, you can definitely see yourself excel at an exponential rate. From a business owner's perspective, I mean, look at the potential cost savings that are here with AI. I mean, even from the creative perspective, as a podcaster, we have all of these monthly subscriptions that we pay for to do our transcriptions and write our show notes. And we have editors and we have all of this creative assets that are coming into play here. And we typically have a subscription to each one of those services. With ChatGPT or one of the similar chatbots that are out there or large language models that we have access to that are out there, we can eliminate the vast majority of those costs. So cost savings is first and foremost one of the considerations that a business owner should take when they're thinking about leveraging something like ChatGPT.
You at the beginning of that answer, you sat there and said, well, sometimes I sit back and I'm trying to think of a solution for a creative type person or I guess anything.
Yeah,
Sometimes, when we're in our mastermind groups, it's not always the first suggestion, idea, or something that is thrown out there that everyone takes and runs with. But sometimes it's that suggestion or idea that prompts other ideas. In other words, wow, this everybody's got a blank state, they're stumped, they're stuck, they don't know where to go, and someone says something that they're not going there, but for whatever reason, it got the ball rolling. And so there are times even when let's take Chat GPT, I might throw in a prompt, I might get a reply back, and it's good, but it's not really there. But what's happened all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that, or I didn't think about this. I can go in this direction, this direction, and this direction. And now all of a sudden, it's like I get unstuck and things just start, I get on a roll.
Yeah. Yeah. If nothing else, it's an excellent idea generator.
Yeah.
And even if you've got that first concept, you can input that first concept with a prompt, basically upload that text or whatever it is, or input the text, and it can build on that for you. So, if you are writing a blog or you're writing a chapter of your book or whatever it might be, you're writing sales copy. I've used it many times to write sales copy. And you get that first paragraph out, you get a little blurb about who you are, what you are, let it do the rest, and there you go. You've got a viable product when it's over. That's been one of the best use cases that I've personally had, because as you mentioned, I do a lot of speaking and I sponsor some of these events, and a lot of times maybe the organizers aren't quite as upfront when they go, hey, we need some copy, and they may hit you up like 30 minutes before you go to speak and go, I need copy for your company. I'm like, well, I don't have any copies, so what do? I run to ChatGPT, write me a real quick 30-second ad, and everything's good.
Yeah. Let me hear one of your expert prompts to get that done. I'm gonna throw you out on the spot there.
Man, you sure did, because I have nothing in front of me. So no, but one of the things that I love to do, and it's pretty common practice when you're leveraging something like ChatGPT, is setting the expectations for the tool itself. And I'm going to back this up just a little bit, because I love talking from this perspective. And a lot of people are still hesitant to use ChatGPT or really any of these generative AI tools that are out there. And when they do give in and they test it, I think it's only human nature that when we test something, we already have somewhat of a preconceived notion as to how that test should come out. So if I ask ChatGPT a question, I already have an idea in my head of what that answer should be. And when I ask ChatGPT the question and it doesn't give me that response in the way that I anticipated or expected, I go, it's garbage. That ChatGPT, it's overrated. It's the next NFT. And what we have to consider is that ChatGPT doesn't know what our expectations are. It has no expectations. It can simply provide you information based on your prompts, whether it's a question or a statement or input that you provide. So one of the things that is absolutely critical is you have to set the stage. You have to set the expectations with your prompts. So regardless of what your niche is, or regardless of what you're asking about, I like to set the stage with ChatGPT by telling it you're an expert in this particular industry.
Mm-hmm.
You know everything there is to know about this particular industry. I'm going to ask you a variety of questions about this particular industry. And I'm also going to ask you some questions that come off of that industry. So you need to be an expert in all aspects of this industry. And you basically just fill in those variables there where I said in this industry. And that's
Right.
a great way to set up a prompt. And then me
Yep.
personally, I also like to ask ChatGPT, do you understand? Just so that I make sure that the expectations are set. And
Yeah.
ChatGPT will respond, yes, I understand that I am expert. I am an expert in this industry. You're going to ask questions about this industry, and I'm going to provide very clear and concise answers in regards to this industry. So now the
Yeah.
expectations are set. So now
Yeah.
we as humans can start to expect, at least more so than we were before, be able to expect certain levels of input or output based on that industry. So I would look for particulars of that industry in the responses that ChatGPT give me. So that's what I would do right out of the gate, especially as somebody that's just started using ChatGPT or has used it and haven't quite got the answers they're looking for. Understand you got to set the stage. So use a prompt, something similar to that, to set that stage and insert those expectations.
When it comes to content creation, for one, from a content creation standpoint, to me, it's outstanding because, I mean, how many blogs do you see? Here's some content ideas. Everyone's looking for ideas because you get stuck. You don't want to keep doing the same stuff, but you need it within your brand, right? So,
Sure.
but like you said earlier, first off, you can ask it for ideas on content creation and it can be an expert in that. Like if you use that prompt you just said, so that's ideal. But are there particular industries that you think are better suited when it comes to this AI content creation than others, or?
In my personal experience, it's basically been revolving around creative industries. But also in like for authors, as far as I spoke to at EO a couple of weeks back, and they wanted a specific presentation on how to leverage ChatGPT to write their books. Everybody wants to be an author, right? If you're an entrepreneur, that's one of the calling cards these days, is to have a book. But not many of us are really authors. So how do we leverage something like ChatGPT to write our books? So that industry has been really at the forefront, but that's still, that's an offshoot of the creatives. So I am going to be doing a presentation in the upcoming months on prompting ChatGPT to write code. So I've got some software engineers where we're going to take it to the code side, and
Nice.
that's going to be very, very interesting. So I'm expanding, my experience there on that side of things, because I haven't played much with the code side. Don't let anybody hear that. So hopefully this isn't live. But
It's live.
Yeah. Oh, dang it. So well, we'll see what happens. But no, that's primarily been my focus, is on the creative side of things.
I sit here and I guess what I wonder from a creative standpoint, I just don't, for me, I've gotten answers back where I'm like, eh. And I think it's just like anything else. The more you play around with the tool,
Mm-hmm.
and I keep focusing in on ChatGPT because that's the one that I use the most. But there are others. But the more you play around with the tool, the more you actually use one tool to help you with another, actually, I think can elevate. And I think the more you use it, the better you become. It's just like anything else. It's like a muscle, right? The
Sure.
more you use it, the better and the stronger you become at it. And so, I've learned very quickly, don't settle for the first answer. Start diving into what I liked about a specific answer and get more specifics and let it expand on that. I mean, what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, even to that point, I spoke about that back in January. You're going to have to tweak it and tweak it and tweak it and test it and test it and test it till you get to the
Yeah.
point where you're getting the results that you want. I do have this one prompt, and it's too long to share verbally, but I'm more than happy to give it to you. Maybe you put it in the show notes.
Yep.
It's a prompt that I call the one prompt to rule them all, and it's a prompt that helps you write better prompts. So the response from the initial prompt has ChatGPT ask you more specific questions about the topic that you're wanting a response from ChatGPT on. And it's an iterative process where you go back and forth and you have a conversation with ChatGPT and you
Yep.
refine this prompt until you have the prompt that's going to get you the results that you want. That's been an amazing tool that blows a lot of people away. And it's helped people really progress in their prompt writing and their prompt engineering at a much faster rate than they would have without it.
So at the end of this episode, we're going to definitely share people how they can reach to you. Is that something you'll give them?
Yeah, either that or I can send it to you and you can put it in the show notes of this episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah, either way. Yeah, I'm more than happy to just share it with you and you put it in the show notes. I think that'd be a great resource for folks.
All right. That's awesome. Thank you. We appreciate that. What do you think? Give us some example of the different content creation task. So you have this one task. What have been the best, I guess, content creations that you've come up with because of AI tools?
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally right now, I'm going to film a commercial this afternoon for a new product offering that I've partnered with some a studio here in Dallas, and we're going to be pitching this product at a conference this weekend. And I literally use ChatGPT to write the script for that video. So depending on what kind of content we're talking about here, you can literally leverage ChatGPT to either inspire you for that content you're creating, or actually almost create it for you, because it literally wrote the script. Sure, we'll probably pencil it up a little bit and change some verbiage to make it sound more like myself and my partner, Mark. But aside from that, it literally wrote the script. And you can do the same thing. If you're a content creator, if you have a YouTube channel or a video-based podcast, you can literally use it to write scripts for each and every one of the videos. I have a series of reels that I wrote the entire script came from ChatGPT. Give it a topic, it spits out a 30-second reel. There's my script. I can go record my reel real quick, knock that out, whether it's a short or a reel or wherever you're putting it, you still have that short form content. Write the scripts for that. It's amazing as an idea generator that you led to earlier for either blog posts or podcast episodes. If you have a podcast in a particular niche, you can get ideas for episodes in that niche based on output from ChatGPT. Going back to podcast, if you have a podcast and you have the transcript from that podcast, it can summarize your transcript, give you show notes that I was mentioning earlier, summarize an entire episode. And the cool thing, man, is a lot of folks are still using ChatGPT 3.5, which is still the free version of ChatGPT. And it has a very limited capacity as far as how many words you can actually upload to 3.5, it's roughly around 2,500. And they actually tokenize the characters that you use, and you get so many tokens, and it's about 2,500 words. But with ChatGPT 4, which you have access to through GPT Plus, if you pay for that $20 a month subscription, they've extended that word count to 25,000. So
Oh, wow.
that's a lot of words. You can literally upload a podcast episode and get that transcript back using GPT 4. So that's pretty amazing.
So what's great is, I'm in the process of launching a new podcast, and
I've heard.
I've had to write a show description, and, for me, that comes very easy. So I uploaded about 25,000 words of my show description and said, "Hey, just clean this up." So,
Nice. I can't wait to read it.
I'm usually the opposite.
No, but that's
So,
a great
all right.
point, though, honestly, because it can clean up what you're doing.
Yeah.
One of, and I'm not just pitching this, but typically I do a lot of podcast audits because people aren't getting the results from their podcast that they want. So an audit is one of the primary things that I do for folks. And
Yeah.
I'll run every audit that I do through ChatGPT. Say, clean up this grammar, check it for spelling, check it for punctuation before I send it back to the client. Yes, Grammarly's out there and these other tools that are out there. But
Yeah.
again, I was able to get rid of all these different subscriptions that I had to all these different services and consolidate them all down to GPT Plus for $20 a month.
Yeah. I was sitting here and I'm thinking, leveraging content. We're always taught, if you've got something good out there, all right, how do I leverage that? Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're paying attention to your analytics and all of a sudden you've got some post out there just crushing it, and it's and you've come to the conclusion that it's the actual message that you're saying, that topic, whatever it might be, is popular and it's getting a lot of engagement.
Yeah.
You can take that thing and sit there and say, all right, this post is, I'm going to simplify this prompt.
Sure.
This is this post is doing extremely well. Create my video script. Now create 10 different quotes or phrases that I can use in post from this. Write a blog on this, right? I mean, you can just keep going.
Yeah.
And now it's a way to leverage that specific hot button, right?
100%. And I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize for that. But what I was going to add there is that you can actually have ChatGPT analyze the content that was doing so well to determine why. What's the tonality here? What's the emotion here? What is making people react to this? Then once it analyzes that content, you can then move forward with what you were saying, create scripts for videos using that same emotion, that same tonality. And you can continue that same voice that you used in that original piece of content throughout all of the other content that ChatGPT creates for you. That's what allows you. And that's one of the things that people complain about. When I use ChatGPT, you can tell it's a robot. Okay, well, that goes back to our prompting a lot of the times, that 99.999% of the time, actually. But if you want to get away from that generic sound, feed it some of your existing content and have it analyze that content. Then moving forward, ChatGPT will give you responses in your voice using the same emotion, the same tonality, the same cadence, the same speech pattern. So it will sound exactly like you. So it's not that ChatGPT can't do it. It's just that we're not quite there as far as how we understand prompting.
Yeah. And it learns on the fly. And so and that's another thing, if you're inconsistent trying to be, we talk about on social media to be authentic.
Yeah.
If you want it to sound more like you, then your prompt should be authentic to you as well. And your replies back to its answers, correct? Is that accurate?
100%. I mean, it uses natural language understanding, or NLU. That's the technology behind it. So you can literally have a conversation with ChatGPT in your voice. You don't have to speak to it in a certain way. You don't have to speak robot to it. You speak just naturally. And with the algorithms that they've leveraged on the AI side of things, ChatGPT starts to analyze how you speak and understands it, and is able to use predictive analytics to understand potentially what that next word would be, or what that next fourth word should be. So that's how that conversation starts to take place. And you can continually build on that. You can start a variety of different chats, literally countless on ChatGPT 3.5. There's some minor limitations with ChatGPT 4 right now on how many conversations you can have at one time, but it remembers those conversations. So if you have a conversation or you start a chat, that chat is saved and you can literally go back to the chat and pick up where you left off. So if you're leveraging certain chats for maybe certain industries or certain tasks and you've set certain expectations within those particular chats, Chat GPT remembers that and it continues to respond in that same tone with that same type of content. So it's really, really cool that way.
What kind of misconceptions are out there with this tool?
I think a lot of the misconceptions is, and right now we're seeing a lot of talk between AI and AGI. You know, there's I don't want to use AI because that's going to eventually become smart and take over the world. And tools that are generative AI, like ChatGPT, like Bard, like Amazon's new Bedrock product. I believe it's Bedrock. I think I said that right. These are all generative AI, meaning they produce output based on your input. So whether it's text based with the tools that I mentioned, or whether it's like Midjourney or Dolly 2, which is another image product, and a variety of others. Firefly, Adobe Firefly just came out. That's amazing. If you haven't played with that yet, I highly recommend it. These tools are generative, meaning they generate responses based on input. AGI, which it's available to us right now too, that's the scary stuff. So AGI is artificial general intelligence, and that's the self-learning AI, literally self-learning. And it's available to us now with Auto GPT. You can actually install it locally on one of your machines, which is really scary. We're giving people access to that type of power right there on their home machines. And we've already seen, I mean, even just in the last couple of weeks with Auto GPT, we had some crazy kid that installed it and gave it a command to take over the world. And it didn't work out very well. I mean, I think it reached about 170 people with his post. But my point is that that's there and people are playing with that. But that's a big misconception. Things like ChatGPT and all these amazing generative tools, they're not going to do anything but help you. So that's one of the biggest ones.
So this what was it? AGI?
AGI, artificial
AG
general intelligence.
So is this like Ultron?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, no kidding here. Seriously, that's the same concept behind it. Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
Self-learning, self-adapting, and now we're talking into the world type stuff. And I've got I don't have my red cap on. I've got my tinfoil cap now. But I mean, I can see maybe where you're installing all of these individual instances of Auto GPT, and what's to say it doesn't get smart enough to start leveraging the internet to connect itself to each other. Next thing you know, you've got I mean, I don't know. I really am writing a sci-fi movie with that, but
right.
I don't know why it wouldn't be, potentially capable of doing that. Eventually.
It was already written, Larry. You're not going to get credit for that. It's a Marvel Avenger movie. So,
well, if I could have my computer talk to me in James Spader's voice, I'd be like, this is kind of cool. I dig it. Yeah.
So if I'm amazed, and I shouldn't say this because as of January, I fit into this category, and I feel like that was forever ago.
It does feel like forever ago, honestly.
But now that I'm using it, I can't believe that more people. It just blows me away when I talk to people as recent as our event.
Sure.
And they're like, no, what is that? Or they have no knowledge of it and don't understand it. It just blows me away. So for those people who want to investigate, what's the best way for them to get started in it? What would you recommend?
There's still ChatGPT is still free to everybody. So there's the opportunity there. Go to openai.com and get you an account there, totally free. Start playing with it. That's one option. If you're a Microsoft person and you are not opposed to using Bing, Bing has finally made itself viable. So that what they've done is they've embedded ChatGPT in Bing. A certain instance, it's not ChatGPT fully, but they're leveraging ChatGPT as part of their search engine. So there's the opportunity to start playing with some AI there. In my experience, it's not the best responses yet. They're still trying to figure out how to leverage it for search engines. Google's doing the same thing. They're trying to implement Bard into part of the Google search engine as well. Haven't really seen anything that's mind-blowing there. So from my perspective, I don't recommend going that route to really start getting an understanding of these tools. But I think ChatGPT is the easiest one, simply because it's text input and it's text output. So some of the other things out there, especially like the image generators, I mean, that's a whole nother level of complexity. And it's very, it's getting easier, but it's still pretty difficult to get high quality results out of some of those image generators. So I wouldn't recommend you start there. I'd recommend going to ChatGPT, grabbing a free account, and start playing with it.
So my son has started to write children's books using ChatGPT. He does no
Yeah.
inventory because he uses Amazon's thing where they'll take a 30% cut, I believe, and print on the fly and
Yeah. You just
send.
do KDP or
He
whatever.
took
Yeah.
yep, and then he took the copy of the book, uploaded it in, and created incredible images to go in the book. So now he's got a completely written book with images, and a whole new business model. I think he sells these books for like $7 on Amazon.
Yep.
Have there been any horrors? Horror is such a strong word. Has there been any horror stories when it comes to, I guess, people using this tool and not really being the author?
Yeah. There's still absolutely no case studies. There's no, there has been no lawsuits as of yet that have come to a conclusion that we can reference. I think it comes down to, back at PodFest, there was also a legal conference there as well. And I don't know if we've had this conversation, but I had the opportunity to speak to a couple of lawyers because I was concerned about this even back then. And one of them gave me a story that kind of settled the argument, at least from my perspective, a little bit. And he was telling me a story about a photographer that went on safari, and he set up his camera, got it ready to take some pictures. But, he was maybe had a guy moment and he had to run over to the bushes, handle some business. Well, while he was over there doing his thing, a monkey literally came by, started playing with the camera, somehow took a picture. Okay. It was an amazing picture. It turned out beautifully. And he went to start selling that. Yes, sir. I saw you raise your finger like you had a question. Yeah.
Yeah. Did the monkey take a picture of him relieving himself? That's the real question.
Negative. Okay. It was just of the monkey. So it was like the monkey's face. So,
all right.
So what ended up happening was this photographer was blown away when he developed the film and saw this image. He's like, oh my God, this is so cool. Plus it's got an amazing story because a monkey actually took the shot. So he starts selling prints of this, and animal rights activists started getting involved, going, okay, you didn't take this shot. You don't have the right to sell that. The monkey took the image, not you. So it actually went to court. He literally had to go to court over this. And the court ruled actually in the photographer's favor. Because while he didn't snap the photo, he did set the camera up. He did set the ISO. He did have the right lens. He did have everything in place for a monkey to come by and hit a button and accidentally take an amazing picture. So he had the creative right. And plus, monkeys just can't hold IP rights. But the real point there was that he was the one that had the knowledge to even allow the monkey to take that shot. So the court ruled in his favor.
The real point here is why in the hell does anybody give a shit about giving a monkey credit for a photo? Why would anybody?
Do we want to stay on topic here, or do you want to put me on a soapbox?
We're going to stay on topic, but just so I mean, you got to be kidding me.
I will climb on my soapbox quicker than oh man, yeah. But
I mean, gosh.
So my point in saying all that is that because he had the skill sets to even make that image happen, he had the copyright or the intellectual property rights to that image. And that's kind of what we've been saying in the AI space as far as being creative with AI is we have to know how to write the prompts. You're not going to go and just instantly get a children's book out of ChatGPT without giving it the right prompts. You're not going to be able to leverage even that output and even upload it to Kindle and use Amazon's KDP services to print the book or distribute the book. You got to have another entirely different skill set to start leveraging other AI tools to generate the images for the book. So we, as the creators, we're still creating. We're just using different tools to do it. So from my perspective and that legal reference there, I still say we have the rights to it. And I know I'll catch some heat for that. Some people will argue that point all day long.
Those animal activists are going to, all the ones that are watching the show, and we have millions and millions of them that watch this show.
I mean, it's the WWF, right? They
that's right.
yeah. So Anyways, I'll probably get us in trouble there for saying WWF, but
We touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to go back into this a little
yeah,
bit.
man.
So I think agencies, if you're a creative agency, marketing agency, ad agency, whatever it might be, we have people within our company because it's relatively new technology to the level it's at right now.
Sure.
Some resist it, not because they don't, just because it's new and they don't know how to use it well yet, right? And that's on us to make sure they do it. But we have a belief is in terms of our leadership team here that you either jump on board with this and get really good, because I think the companies that get really good at using this technology know how to really do the prompts, get the answers that really will propel them forward.
Sure.
It is going to be night and day. And I think the companies that fall behind on this, I think they run a real risk of becoming extinct, because this, let's just talk, forget the creativity and the content
Yeah.
creation for a second.
Yeah.
Let's spend some time talking about just efficiency and productivity and streamlining workflows real quick.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And it's funny you said that you go extinct, because that's the exact verbiage I used with my VP buddy, the IT VP from where I used to work. I said either the guys they learn it or they start hanging out with T-Rex. I mean, it's just that simple. And he didn't appreciate that too much, but I can be open with him. It's cool. But no, I mean, streamlining everything. It literally streamlines everything, and it goes back to what I said earlier. Some of his programmers saying the code was dirty. They were saying that because they're saying it out of self-preservation. They're seeing it as a threat to their existence, and I can understand that. But at the same time, go back to what I was saying. If this had been available when I was writing code, I could, instead of maybe even trying to bother another programmer and say, hey, man, can you look at this code? Because I know I'm doing something that's just stupid that I'm not seeing. Instead of wasting another resource in-house, I could leverage ChatGPT and say, debug this code. It could find the issue, and I could move on with my day and not interrupt anybody else's productivity.
Yeah.
So just looking at it from that perspective is amazing. If you leverage it as a programmer and it's giving you the vast majority of your code that's very functional, why wouldn't you? Imagine how many more projects you can get done. I was a project manager back at the same company and business analyst before I went into the BI side of things. We had projects stacked up for days. We had 8 BAs in the house, and all of us were managing multiple projects throughout the year. So imagine that backlog, how that could have got cleaned up if we, as the business analyst, because our job was to analyze internal processes at this company and then write specs for the programmers to write the code. So imagine, as a business analyst, if I was to go analyze this process and be able to plug in the concept of that process to ChatGPT, and at least gives me the foundational code. And then I hand that to the programmer, and the programmer goes, oh, I see exactly what we're doing that. And whether he writes it from scratch or whether he takes that code snippet and builds on it, it's irrelevant. Just think of how much more efficient that is, instead of me going back and forth. I'm kind of like the guy on Office Space. I'm good with people. I talk to the customer, and then I talk to the customer, and then I talk to the programmers, and then I talk to the programmers, and I talk. That's kind of what a business analyst does, at least my business analyst role. That's what it was. But imagine how much more effective I could have been as a business analyst if my specs could have already contained at least snippets of code that were reflective of exactly what the customer was asking for. So, I mean, just leveraging it that way, that doesn't put anybody out of business. There's always going to be plenty of projects, especially from a programmer perspective or an analyst perspective. You're never going to run out of projects. All you're doing is being more effective and more efficient in your role.
Imagine just the training, the time savings on training.
Sure.
On things that you typically in the past had to train for. To me, that goes away because there's a lot of research. There's a lot of questions you can ask ChatGPT, and you get very accurate answers on a wide range of information.
Sure.
So in other words, I don't want to have to sit there and train someone on how to write. Let's say you have someone managing social media, some of your channels. So Or let's say you hire a bunch of employees and you want them fully. This is a better example. Let's say you hire a bunch of employees, new employees, and you want your employees engaged on social media, whether that's to help build their own brand and or support the company, whatever it might be. And I don't want to have to sit there and train them on how to do it properly. If we could go back into like the prompt that you said about you're an expert in this, you are an expert in social media, posting, whatever it
Yeah,
might be,
social
right?
media
You
marketing
could,
or management, whatever
yeah,
you want to do. Yeah.
you could sit there and literally say, I need you to write a post description about this topic, uh, or I have an image with this caption or whatever, describe whatever you're posting about this video. I need you to write a post description for my IG, my Instagram audience, or for my LinkedIn audience, or for my private Facebook group, whatever it might be. Yeah, it spits it out with the hashtags. It spits it out with the emojis. I mean, the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what's amazing, especially if you're telling it to write a tweet, you get the hashtags to go with the tweet. That's insane.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
likes doing emojis? I hate going through trying to find that damn fire emoji every time I'm on Instagram because it never saves my emojis for whatever reason. So I'm scrolling through. Where's that freaking fire? So imagine it puts it in there for you. You know, that in
Yeah.
itself is a ton of time savings. But yeah, from a
Yeah.
training perspective too. I mean, if you look at it, especially from a corporate perspective, training usually takes a backseat to just about everything because that's how I started my corporate career, was a corporate trainer for Texas Instruments. And
Yeah.
it always came second to everything else.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to invest the time or the money in training. And if you have something like ChatGPT, that takes that pressure off. I mean, even Jordan Peterson, when this thing first hit the scene and people were just talking about it, maybe in December, he had mentioned something along the lines. He feels that like 30%, or I think it was 30%, maybe it was 35% of all universities are going to go out of business because there's no need for them anymore with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So give them 5 years, they'll be gone. It's going to revolutionize the way we do so much in life.
So I was at a dinner for my father-daughter dance, and all the daughters are talking and the dads are all talking, but we're all different. We all have different careers. We're all in different industries. We all have different professions.
Sure.
And the topic came up of ChatGPT, and I forget the industry. It had something to do with medical. Not something that is you're super familiar with though. But he goes, one of the things he's doing is he's trying to hire someone, and he goes, all right, so I'm trying to write this job description for whatever. So I literally took out my phone, because I always have it open, by the way. My computer is never, there is never a tab where it's not open, and or my phone.
Next to me, I don't know anybody that's as ChatGPT friendly as you are. I mean, you're an addict just like I am. So it's welcome to the club.
It saves me time. I don't have the time to do all these things. And so I'm sitting here and I said, all right, so give me a little description about what it is that all I did was say the job.
Yeah.
And I knew nothing about it because we're at dinner. And all I did was say, write a job description for this position. Boom. And son of a bitch, this thing came out. I showed it to this guy. All right. I showed it to this guy. He goes, wow, that's really good. And like 10 seconds. It printed out. Not even 5 seconds. I'm on spring break. All right. And we're all sitting around, and we rent this house. We're skiing. So we rent this house, and I'm talking to my brother-in-law, and he does mastermind groups and leadership retreats similar to ours. And he literally, he was struggling because he had to come up with all his emails to help promote the conference. All right. And as you do these, you don't want to keep sending the same emails time and time again. Eventually, people become callous. I said, Sean, let me go to your website. So I literally went to his website, and I told ChatGPT, I said, here's the information I'm going to provide you, basically. All right. And I took all the information that I thought was compelling from his website about the event. I put it into ChatGPT. I said, write me a 7 email, an email sequence containing 7 emails that will convert readers to attendees. All right.
Yep.
Or drive people to the landing page. I forget. 10 seconds, 7 emails. I said, how does this work? Gave me the subject line, the whole thing. I said, Sean, read these 7. It literally printed out in 10 seconds. He goes, wow, these are awesome.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to use those, but you can at least take that and then just make your tweaks to it and move on with your day.
100%. Dude, I'm using it to write a TEDx talk. You know, my rough draft of my TEDx is due next Thursday. I promise you, it's coming from ChatGPT. Why wouldn't it? Honestly, and I'm writing the TED talk about AI, as a matter of fact. So, of course, I'm going to use it as case in point to write the talk. But that's how robust it is. And again, right. You asked about an industry specific niche that works better. Really, it's anything. You know, and if you look at something like GPT-4 with GPT Plus there that you can subscribe to, I am not sponsored by them, so I'm not driving sales to them by any means. I'm just saying that's how you get access to the good stuff is you sign up for GPT Plus. It's going to have access to the internet. That functionality is not released yet, but you're going to be able to reference websites. So that literally opens the entire world to your fingertips.
When I'm looking for information, I don't go to Google anymore.
Yeah.
Because the information in the way I really kind of want it delivered, I don't want to go to Google and have to go to different sites to see, well, is this the site that's actually going to give me the information I want? And then it only gives me about 10%. And then I got to go to another site and get more information. I just get it all in a prompt. And if I got more requests, I just type another question and it just keeps giving it to me.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Here's the other thing. I think there's a huge opportunity. And this is where I think the human and individual creativity is really going to differentiate everybody else. Because the more people that use this down the road, I think for the people that really focus on building more value for their clients and know how to articulate that and differentiate themselves, I think it's going to be easier to stand out, because I do believe the more people that start using different AI tools and they just take it and run with it, pretty soon, in my opinion, they run the risk of just kind of sounding all the same.
Yeah. I mean, you still can't take the humanity out of it, and that's always a huge concern too. And at least at this stage of the game, we still have to put our own creativity in there. And even that goes, back to the prompts. Our creativity has to be part of the prompting process. And then even if we do prompt it in a way that gives us a nice creative response, we still have to insert the humanity in there. And while it can come back and it can sound pretty human based on the quality of your prompts, it's still not, it's still generic. And you do run that risk, because I've honestly seen in other people's presentations, I think if you recall, I showed some dad jokes in my presentation just because I used it to generate some dad jokes. I've seen a couple of those jokes in other people's presentations. So I don't know what prompt they used to get them, but it was the exact same. I was like, so I've seen that happen. So, and that was with 3.5, 4 supposed to resolve some of that. It's supposed to be much more creative and much more robust. It is, but we still, as you mentioned, we run that risk of sounding like everybody else when we're leveraging tools like this. So we still have to go back in there and insert our personalities, insert our experience. Many of us that are using this for content creation purposes have a lot of life experience. If you talk to me, I mean, I'm 50. I've been in corporate America for 25 years. I've done a whole lot. So all that experience, ChatGPT doesn't know anything about that. And it can't put that experience in its responses. And that's where it comes back on us to share those experiences.
I just thought of an idea. I want to run this idea by you. Of course, you never know until you start using it. So if you want to write good copy, right? Let's go pre-AI tools.
Okay.
One of the best ways to be very compelling to your audience, good and bad, is if you pay attention to your let's say Google reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And within them, you're going to hopefully have a lot of great reviews of people talking about, in their language, in their words, describing what it was that they liked about your product and or service. And if you're a good marketer, you build on that. You should get a very clear picture. Our audience likes this, this, and this about us and or our product.
Yep.
Then you look at your negatives with negative reviews, which are just as important. And you can sit there and say, our clients are annoyed or view this as an inconvenience when this happens, or they don't like this about us and or our product, service, whatever it might be, process. You could, just like you said, you could take a post and analyze it.
Mm-hmm.
You could take those reviews, punch them in the good side into ChatGPT and say, analyze these, take the bad, analyze these. And then could it not write a unique selling proposition or I mean,
100%. 100%. And that's why, if you go back to my presentation, I talked about analysis for your social media. That's the exact project that you work through in order to make that happen. You go through that exact exercise so that ChatGPT can start rewriting your content and your copy for your social media in a way that responds to the engagement that you get from your audience. And you can do the exact same thing with your reviews. 100%.
Yeah, and what's great about reviews, that's real world.
Yeah.
That's no nonsense that's no
No.
bullshit in there. That's
No,
this
they're gonna
is
tell you how
real
they feel.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
real stuff. And so and quite honestly, if you know people are annoyed or view certain things as an inconvenience, and all of a sudden you fix that process, you become a disruptor because now that's no longer an issue. You have found a way to solve this one common thing that everyone seems to have an issue with,
Sure.
whatever it might be.
And you can determine what that one thing is by
You turn that
analyzing these
negative.
posts. Yeah.
Correct. Now you turn that negative into a positive, as long as you can live up to the promise
Sure.
of what you're saying, right? I'm not saying throw something out there and then don't deliver on it. You gotta be able to deliver on your promise. So, but it's an easy way to find disruptive solutions, is it not?
100%. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think that escapes a lot of folks, and they don't understand that functionality exists by leveraging the tool, and they can get insights. There again, massive savings. Instead of having somebody come in and do that analysis on site and paying tens of thousands of dollars, you could literally spend a few minutes and go through
Yes.
that exercise and get the same results. And
Yeah.
then take action to rectify those issues. So 100%. And that's great insight that you've shared. That in and of itself, I think, takes this conversation to the next level.
Well, Larry, it's what I do here.
I know
It's
you're amazing. So
all right. So what have we not discussed today that you feel like, all right, on this topic alone, we can't leave this show without talking about this? Give it to us now. Help us
yeah,
out.
I think the big thing is just looking for the future. Things are evolving in this space so quickly that if it's something you want to dive into, you're going to have to dive into it and continue your education, because it literally evolves each and every day. There's new tools out there. There's new opportunities out there. There's new iterations. There's updates, you name it. And everybody's trying to get into this space right now. Literally everybody. All the big
Yeah.
players. I mean, I literally just signed up for Bedrock. I think it was yesterday or day before, going through Amazon, and they're leveraging Bedrock as part of their Amazon Web Services. So that's a new one. I'm on the wait list. I didn't even get in yet, but not sure that I will. Who knows? But you got to stay on top of these things to see where there's different opportunities are arising. I think Amazon's going to be really, I think they're going to bring something really, really powerful when they're leveraging it with their web services as well. I think there's going to be some opportunities there to do some development on a level that we haven't had yet with ChatGPT. So going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But that's pretty much it, man. There's a great website out there if you want to look at some of the tools that are available. It's a website I fell in love with. It's called there'sanaIforthat.com.
Hold on here. I'm going to create a banner and put this at the bottom. What is it again?
There's an AI.
Wait a minute. There's like
THERES.
All right. Yep.
Well, now I forgot it. There's an AI for that. There, just say the sentence, Larry.
.com, right?
.com. There's an AI for that.com.
All right. I want to make sure we got that up there right.
And I just noticed your paddle on the back wall. I have never noticed that before. It's kind of scaring me.
Well, I normally bring that to the events, and when people get out of line, I use it. That's why
Man,
I
you
have it.
didn't this time. I definitely would have been there. Had many of
So
those
what
on my backside over the years.
so one of the things you should have learned at Business Bourbon and Cigars is relationships are key.
100%.
So you're on this wait list. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call Jeff when we get off of here.
Please.
All right, I'm gonna call Jeff and I'm gonna get you moved to the top of that list, if not right, instant access.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's funny you're saying that because I literally, if you go to my Facebook right now, I posted last night that with all of this technology, and we're always chasing this, as I put it, social media dragon. We're all trying to be influencers and we're all trying to build these great audiences online. I think we've lost touch with the realities of real interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
And then you kind of brought that up there. So it's kind of been a tangent that I'm on because while we have all these tools and we have social media, we have all this digital assets available to us, we're still finding ourselves where we still need that personal connection. And for me personally, especially over the last couple of years, it's the relationships that I've developed and built that have taken me far beyond what any of my social media has done. So I think that's something that we need to keep in sight as well as we continue to evolve with this AI revolution.
You know Ina Coveney, right?
Yeah.
She does a great job talking about just that. In one of the workshops I went to with her, another PodFest, this was 2 years ago. She had a really good workshop and she asked a great question. She said, if you had to sell somebody this amount of business in the next 2 to 3 days, what would you do? And you wouldn't be posting on social media. You'd be reaching out to your audience that you've already got relationships with. And trying to do something with that. So her whole topic was about how to leverage small audiences. And so the quality of your audience and the relationships you form within your audience are far more important than how many people follow you.
100%.
And so, yeah, I agree with that, man. There I go, bumping my mic again with this damn hat.
You're a professional. It's okay.
Outstanding episode, man. Let's go wrap it up for another Move, Crush, Count. We explored a lot about AI, about content creation, about workflows and productivity and efficiency. Awesome thing. I always love talking to you. Learn a lot. I've got you, if you're watching this, we've got a link at the bottom we want you to visit. You can get in touch with Larry at redhatmedia.io/meet Larry Roberts. So it'll also be in the show notes, and you can link straight to him when we go and drop the episode as well. So make sure you visit him. Incredible guy, very intelligent, and you know what? You bring up, first off, it's a good thing you got out of IT because you don't have the person.
No.
These IT people are going to kill me. You don't have you're too much fun. A lot of people don't know, and plus, I don't know how many IT people have such a depth of knowledge with your old hardcore rap that you do and hip hop.
We're not taking it out with a few bars. We are not doing that. No, I'm not doing it. There's not a chance.
All right. If you enjoyed today's episode, do us a favor, subscribe, visit movecrushcount.com. So you can catch up on all our past episodes and not miss any future ones. We do a lot of live episodes. You can catch those on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn, of course. So stay connected with the community. Special thanks to our sponsor, J&L Marketing, who helps you outsmart your competition so you don't have to outspend them. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, everyone.